If we dig deeper, we look at the whole idea of Paul trying to tell his churches how they're supposed to think, how they're supposed to organize their thoughts, think on things that are excellent and trustworthy and true and just. What business does Paul have telling people what to think? Why does he give so much time being the smother mother and father that he is, that we all know he is? He's overbearing at times. He has lots of instructions for everybody, whether they were looking for it or not. This Paul, who was temporarily blinded, spat upon, stoned, jailed, shipwrecked, snake-bitten, and also had a thorn in his flesh, seems to me he would have fared a lot better if he had just minded his own business instead of telling everybody else how to mind their own. But you see, Paul had this compulsion of people understanding that what they think is how they behave, that thoughts matter. And how we organize those things in our mind will then affect how we behave. What we believe about the world will then determine how we interact with it, how we connect with it or fail to connect with it. What we believe about the church and its ministries will be affected by what we think. What we do for that will then be affected by what we think about it. Paul tells the church that it needs to be excellent. It needs to excel. I'm not sure how you feel, but I look at children today, and I remember my childhood. I remember that I used to get out on my bike in the country and ride for 3 and 4 and 5 miles all by myself. And my mother, if she worried about me, she never told me. I played in a backyard that didn't have a big fence around it, and I didn't have to have a buddy with me all the time. Life has changed. And the things that we expect of our children, some of our children don't even get to enjoy the childhood. We expect them to excel and perform and do and be and get and receive. Adults are working 70 and 80 hours a week just to hold on to a job that some folks, in working that hard, have lost anyway because the company can't afford to keep them. Excel in every way. Shouldn't the church be a place where we can just finally find some sanctuary and rest and not have to plunge forward? Well, yes. But folks, in this climate, with the changing culture, if the church relaxes, the church will be no more. We understand that this 21st century, as we've talked about for weeks, and as you know, is full of people who have little to no memory of church life. A generation of people who've never even been part of the church because their parents didn't take them. Or you have some who have plenty of memories of the church, and they are not pleasant, thank you very much, and they're gone. And the chances of getting them back could be slim. You may offer a Eucharist service. If you do it in-house, they may not come, but if you do it down at Dick Nelson's Fine Arts Center, they may show up, which is why we're going to do it there as well. But we cannot neglect the fact that to do it the way we've always done it is not going to work. What would happen if the church decided to settle for less? If we decided not to have the resources and staff or dollars and time to be able to reach a new generation of person who's never heard the old story? What if we gave up on finding innovative ways to help people understand that they still haven't found what they're looking for, even if they don't know they're missing something? When we gather as a church in this unfamiliar cultural climate, do we talk and pray and envision about what the church will look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 or 20 years from now? Think about your own young adults. What does it take to draw them into a church community? Think about your youth. What does it take to entice them in this ever-increasing age of technology and so many choices? What would our churches look like without new children or with no children at all? What would the church look like without new youth or young adults? What would the church look like without folks who didn't join anymore and we just waited around for the existing members to pass so we can bury them? There are plenty of churches that do that, you know. You know why they do it? because they're unwilling to change. They're unwilling to address the things that could make a difference for someone who doesn't know the old story. With declining numbers in mainline denominations, including the Methodist Church, rapid decline, the future of the church rests on how willing we are to ask these difficult questions about how are we going to reach people for Christ in ways that are relevant, but in ways that don't compromise the gospel. The message of Christ never changes. The way we deliver it will always change with each new generation. I've had so much fun sitting with some young adults recently. Jeremy Self has become my new coffee buddy. Jeremy and I like to go in the Barnes & Noble or Starbucks. I really like to pick his brain. What's going on with young adults in your generation? Why is it that you come to the church? You could be doing plenty of other things. Why is it that you choose to be a steward at the 9 o'clock service for serving communion, for getting our communion tables ready? Why would you do that and another young adult would not? Folks, start asking folks questions. You'll learn some things. We've got to be willing to ask those questions so we'll know the way we need to chart our course and the way that we can win and reach the most people for Christ. There's lots of ways to be excellent and to bear fruit. These 5 practices are just some of the ways. Just for starters, practicing hospitality that's radical, worship that's passionate that doesn't always look the same, faith development that's intentional, mission that's risk-taking and edgy, and generosity that's extravagant. It's going to demand something from all of us if we're going to continue in this path. Folks, I want to tell you, you are one of the most innovative Methodist churches I've ever been a part of. You really are. And you have much to celebrate. Much of what I'm saying, you don't need to hear as much as some of our other churches of Holston need to hear, frankly. But it is a challenge to us to stay on the cutting edge, to find new ways to think about ministry and to think about reaching people. I want to ask you these questions. Is there only one way to do worship at Cherokee? Is Sunday the only day that we could worship? I want you to think about young families, dual income families that have new babies on the way, and Sunday may be their only day to rest, and you know what? Many of them take it. What would it be like if we said, look, if you can't make it to church on Sunday morning and your Sunday school class can't manage that because of all the stressors in your life, how about having a Tuesday night class at somebody's house, and we'll find a way to count that as church. I bet I can find a way that I can make Randy count that as church, and if he doesn't count it, who cares? It's not about the numbers anyway. The numbers represent people. Why do we have to do it on Sunday? It's not the only way to do church. Talking with Zach Hammonds just a couple of weeks ago, I ran into Rachel at Subway. I know I'm supposed to go to that home, so I'm going. Rachel is not able to come, or she's afraid to come back because it's been so long since she's been. But she said, I am wilting away. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm on disability now. What can I do? Is there anything I could do? I said, oh, there's plenty you could do. I'm going to bring you a stack of stuff that you could do for the church. Why not? We find new ways to reach out to people who may be cut off for one reason or the other. Mission trips can revitalize and rejuvenate churches. I don't know what's happening in the youth group. Brad, do you know what's happening in the youth group? He's not in here. He was in here. Where are you? There you are. What's happening? We're up to 32 kids that were at the cookout, 18 or 20 that are coming to youth on Sunday night. What is going on? It's exciting. People are coming. They're inviting their friends. Something new is happening. If he knew what was going on, he could tell me.